This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
Well, a bombshell in the golf world today, and a Sun Devil legend right in the middle of it. Jon Rahm is joining the LIV Tour, announced this afternoon, and Rahm has been making some media rounds explaining his decision. Let's talk to a man who actually got to be part of a news conference with him as Jon Rahm went through why he's leaving the PGA Tour and joining LIV Golf. Let's go out to the East Coast and check in with our man Adam Woodard, a good friend of the Extra Point here on Arizona's Family. Thanks for making time for us tonight. And what was your reaction to hearing the news today, something that had been rumored for a while, but to actually see it happening? Jon Rahm is with LIV Golf.
Yeah, it's one of those things where there's so much smoke, there's got to be a little fire there at some point, right? And we've been hearing about this for the last couple of weeks, and it's really picked up, especially over the last 2 weeks. So it really wasn't as groundbreaking as I thought. It was more of just things kind of being confirmed, right? Because we had all heard the rumors for so long, and it wasn't a matter of if it was going to happen, but rather when it was going to happen. So definitely shocked to see that the world number 3 is going, especially given everything he has said in the past about the PGA Tour and his support for it, about LIV and his questions with the format. I mean, he straight up came out and said that, shotgun starts, 54 holes, that's not a real competition. Tonight, talking to a few reporters on a Zoom call, he said, look, opinions change. I've changed my opinion. People evolve. I have vaguely hinted at there might be some changes coming to LIV's format, saying that, he hopes LIV's heeds some of his advice. So do they make a change to 72 holes? Maybe. Do they change some of their product? Maybe. But he was very, complimentary of the product and said, the big word was evolve. He said that multiple times. He's seen the evolution of LIV over the last 2 years. He's seen how it's become a global product, and it's something he wanted to be a part of. And legacy was also a big thing that he talked about. And I guess he sees this as his way to really make his legacy.
How much of this do you think is about the money, and how much of this do you think is about the way the proposed merger was handled, with Rahm not finding out until right before?
Yeah, I definitely. He's been outspoken in the past saying that, he didn't like the backroom dealings and the fact that it kind of happened overnight and no one knew about it until, they went on the, MSNBC, broadcast, Yasser and Jay talking about it. He was definitely not happy about that, but I don't think the money had as much to play with it as some might think. Sure, we've seen the reports of a $600 million deal. He obviously didn't talk about any of his contract specifics with us. But he did say that, he's been in the past saying money's not going to change anything. Money's not going to change anything. But he did say, look, they put that offer in front of me, right? And I had to consider it. So money was definitely part of it. He's not gonna lie to us and say that it wasn't. But I definitely think it was more the fact that maybe he wasn't as appreciated as he thought, as a Rory McIlroy, as a Tiger Woods was, and he thinks he should be. And obviously, I think he should be as well. He's the 2-time major champion at 29 years old. He's won a bunch of huge events, both on the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour, reigning Masters champion. I mean, that's as high class as you get. And when he's at his best, I think he's the best player in the world. You put him and Scotty, Victor Hovland, Rory, all of these guys at their best. I think Jon Rahm comes out on top of those guys if they're all playing their best game. And I definitely think that had more to do with it than the money. But obviously both of those were a part of the decision. But he was also very clear in saying that this had nothing to do with the framework agreement. And I think we can take him at his word for that, seeing as he made the announcement before anything has come out of that. So now if some news were to break tomorrow, that'll obviously change that. And, given how quick things have moved over the last few weeks, I wouldn't be surprised if something happens before the deadline. But I would definitely think that the money and it doesn't play as much into it as the fact that he maybe didn't feel as appreciated on the PGA Tour as he probably should have been.
Yeah, it's crazy. And to hear you say that he's the best golfer in the world right now, I mean, it just seems like we were over at Arizona State thinking, oh, this guy's really good. He maybe, can join the tour and maybe win a couple tournaments. And it's pretty stunning to watch his ascension here. As far as just the PGA Tour goes, how big of a blow is this for the current PGA Tour?
Huge. I mean, in the last 2 years, they've lost 2 players who are ranked in the top 5 of the official World Golf ranking, who are the former British Open champion and Cam Smith, and now your reigning Masters champion Jon Rahm. Exit. A tough blow for the tour, and it puts a lot of credence to something that I can't remember if it was Jimmy Dunn or Ed Hurley who said it during one of those comical Senate hearings that they had to go up in front of. But when they said, look, if LIV is able to take 5 players a year, they could gut us, right? They could kill us. This is a start. They've taken 2 of the best players on the tour in the last 2 years. Now, granted, they need to pull more people than a Brendan Steele, a Cameron Tringale, or a Thomas Peters, no offense to any of them, but the guys that LIV brought in addition to Cam last year weren't going to be enough to move the needle from the tour to them. I still don't think Jon Rahm is a big enough name to move the needle and be able to make LIV the product that they think it wants to be, but it is one heck of a start to be able to get him. I mean, it's the biggest, it's the biggest acquisition they've made, maybe aside from getting DJ to come first, because after DJ was the first to go, that opened the floodgates for a lot of guys. But I'd be curious to see who's going to be next after this one. Different reports of people's names in there. Obviously, Jason Day was one of them that a lot of us had heard, but he came out and said that wasn't going to happen. It was easy to think him, given that the All Aussie team, has 2 open spots on it. So that was going to be a big name that I think could have been huge for LIV to get, but it appears he's not going. So, I mean, we'll see who else can go, but this is to go back to your original question, massive blow to the tour, massive.
So is this almost a moot point if they merge? Like, how do we know anything about how the schedule will work, assuming that a deal is reached before the December 31st deadline?
Nope. That's the best answer I can give you is we really don't know. I mean, I can speculate and guess as much as you want, and I can give some thoughts. I think something that John said was interesting was he talked at, the Ryder Cup was his biggest hurdle, right? It wasn't the backlash that could come. It wasn't, we're working for a tour that's funded by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. We've all talked about the sports washing and the issues that they've had. But the biggest hurdle for him was the Ryder Cup. And he seems to think that, he's going to be able to hold on to both of his PGA Tour and DP World Tour memberships, and that he still plans to play in the Ryder Cup in the future. And he even said, look, I hope that we can get to a point where I can play the legacy events that I've grown to love on both the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour. He's a multiple time winner of the Spanish Open. Spain is very important to him, his native country. I think he wants to still be involved in that if he can. So do we know what's going to happen and if they're going to be able to? No. And anybody who says they do anything is either lying or just, talking out their rear end. But it's definitely going to be interesting going forward. And I think Jon Rahm is going to be a pretty important case study, considering he does still have his membership on both tours. A lot of guys gave up theirs. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. He seems to think he can do it, but that's going to be something we'll have to talk about in the future.
Well, and we're all concerned and wondering here if he's going to show up for the Phoenix Open. There's a LIV event scheduled in Las Vegas Super Bowl week, which if it's on the calendar, you would assume they would play it. Do you think they play both of those? I know there's no way to know, but if they reach some sort of deadline, do you think they still would go ahead and play it as scheduled?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, everything I've heard from LIV is last year, even coming into now, we are full steam ahead, not even worried about anything. They have a full schedule for 2024, aside from a couple events that still haven't been released. But they're already taking bids for 2025 from courses, and they're getting a lot more international interest than domestic interest in as far as courses and people that want to host events. So they've got a list of places that are lined up and ready to pay some big money to get them there. So I mean, I think it's crazy that they're hosting an event the same week as the Super Bowl in Vegas. I think that's just absolutely wild. More power to them. I'm excited to see how it plays out and what the interest is like for that. But I would assume, look, they're all steam ahead. Everything's going forward. I'd be shocked if they changed the schedule or did something different now.
So do we get you out here, or are you going to the Super Bowl in Vegas?
That's a great question.
It's a good one to have, right?
Good one to have. I've never been to the Phoenix Open. I haven't made my pilgrimage to the People's Open just yet. One of our editors, who I know is out there and tends to go to that, and we obviously have a good relationship with our partner paper at the AZ Republic, AZ Central there. So they tend to take up a lot of the media seats for us there, but I'm fingers crossed to get to go at some point, because it's an incredible event that I'd love to see live at least once.
Well, and we could drag you in here maybe for the podcast on like Friday or Saturday after a couple long nights and see how you're doing. See if your fastball. Way more important than the
Phoenix Open. That's way more important than the Phoenix Open is getting to be in studio with you. Absolutely.
Good. We've got like Dierks Bentley here and Diplo and all kinds of fun. Post Malone is coming out here. I mean, Vegas doesn't have Post Malone. Like they're not playing. Post Malone's not playing inside a Coliseum on the golf course, right?
I don't think so.
So yeah,
not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to Post in a while, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's the next guest here on the podcast. So do you feel like I mean, as we're heading to this deadline, like what has to happen? What are the dominoes that have to fall? And what are the storylines that you're kind of looking at here as far as what the future of golf is going to look like?
Yeah, I know. I mean, a lot of players still aren't happy about it, so I think that's going to be a hurdle they're going to have to get over. I mean, Tiger just released a memo that was sent out on, a week ago to players that was signed by all the player directors saying, look, we're actively working forward to unite the game of golf and to have this be better. The big things to watch are who are going to be the people who are involved as far as funding for this for-profit entity that the framework agreement drew up, right? The thought is there are 5 other, competing companies or investment funds, hedge funds that want to get involved in addition to, not just on top of, but also in addition to the public investment fund. There's thought that maybe diluting the PIF's investment would help get stuff passed in the government standpoint. That's all well above my pay grade, and I've tried to talk to people about it. Still confuses the ever-living heck out of me trying to get that worked out and what it's going to be. But I think it's just going to be a matter of people. There's going to have to be concessions made on both sides, whether it's how much money is involved, who is involved, giving said money. There's so much stuff that's still up in the air, and frankly, not a lot of people are talking about it, and for good reason. There's a lot of leaks in golf, and I'm surprised not much has gotten out about this, but I think it's all just going to come down to who's going to be involved and how much money. And getting over the players is going to be a hurdle, but also passing the DOJ's, smell test is also going to be pretty tough to do, depending on how much of the PIF investment is actually in there, given that it's, backed by Saudi Arabia. And
Jay Monahan or Greg Norman, who has a higher likelihood of keeping his job?
Oof. You asked the tough questions. Greg kind of did a drop in on a few of us at the LIV Golf Team Championship, got to talk to him for the first time, and he was confident that he's going to be around and he's not going anywhere. I mean, he's been a figurehead for this, for LIV from the start, whether we call him figurehead, punching bag, whatever the word choice you want to use. He's been the guy out front. He's taken a lot of the shrapnel, and this is what he's always wanted, right? He's wanted a global tour dating back to the 90s when he got shut down for the first time. He's achieved that, and he deserves credit for finding the people to back him and to do it with. Right, you got to give LIV at least a little bit of credit, given what they've been able to do over the last couple of years to take as many of the players and characters that they've done, and also to be able to put together the seasons that they have and the events that they have. But Jay lost so much trust with the players. He lost so much confidence in a lot of the guys. I don't know if he's done enough to get that back, but he also is going to be as things stand, he's going to be the head guy for this he's going to be the CEO of this new, for-profit entity that they create, or at least that was the initial plan. So I don't know how he gets ousted. I don't know if he's going to do both jobs, whether that's be PGA Tour commissioner and be the head of that for-profit entity. I'd have a hard time believing that. But if I had to say it, I think it's Greg. I think Greg has a better chance at keeping his role because he doesn't have anything controversial going against him right now. And, Jay's got a couple hundred people who are still pretty ticked off at him, I think.
Yeah, and he's got the money behind him for sure. This is going to be fascinating to watch. So tell us what you're kind of burning on next, where your next article is going to drop on Golf Week, what you're thinking about doing, and where we can follow you up until the news breaks of what the future of golf looks like.
Yeah, at Golf Week Mag and Golf Week all over our social medias. We'll be all over that. At Adam Woodard on Twitter for me. What I got cooking now is just following up on what's next for Rahm, right? He did talk a lot about his future and what he wants. He talked about his legacy a lot, right? And anyone who's ever listened to Jon Rahm do an interview, there's a chance he's talked about Seve Ballesteros, right? He idolizes the guy. He talks about him all the time, holds him to an incredibly high regard. And the one thing he kept talking about tonight was legacy, legacy, legacy. He thinks that this is his way to make his mark, to be a captain, to be, to quote, a pioneer for this, right? Sure, he wasn't, one of the first groups of guys that came, but to come in LIV Golf's third year and they don't have any plans of going away anytime soon, he thinks he's going to be around for a long time, and this is his way to make his mark, similar to the way that Seve did, worldwide, putting Spanish golf on the map, and the way he was able to bring his passion to the game. And Rahm thinks he can do that, but in a different way with LIV, and he's got a 9-figure deal to help with that in case it goes south. So it's not a bad consolation prize.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing him what he's driving around the valley now, and if he moves or something like that. But he's always been great to us here. You've always been great to us here on Arizona's Family, the Extra Point, and we need to get you out here to cover the Phoenix Open at some point. Hopefully, Jon Rahm and maybe even Phil Mickelson would return at some point. That would be super fun. So happy holidays, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. Appreciate the time, and take care. Hope to talk soon.
The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.